Of course, everybody's influenced by something, so I'm influenced by friends who tell me about something, or somebody I admire who posts it on their Facebook or SoundCloud. So it's not always that I stumble over something that I never heard before. It's often from friends or acquaintances. But I'd rather find it that way than actual corporation who has another agenda. And so in general, I listen to more obscure music. New York, you don't have to listen to any popular music if you don't want to, because you don't have to drive, so there's no radio. So the only time I hear, radio, major program director curated music is if you're in a store shopping or in a taxi cab, things like that. But I don't have a TV at home. I don't have a car. I don't go shopping that much. So I'm very, very shielded, which is so nice. So the last 10 years, this way of force-feeding music has kind of ended. It's great. So I'm very thankful I don't have to hear it anymore. I always loved electronic music. I went crazy for synthesizers since I'm a little boy. My brother introduced me, and I remember I so much wanted to play synthesizer, but there's no chance, of course. My mom plays violin, so to her, a synthesizer is not a musical instrument. I ended up learning cello. It's not mandatory to go to music college or to have lessons. I think it will just save you so much time. It saves you time to learn songs quickly. If you understand chords and harmonies, you can memorize a pop song by thinking, okay, it goes 1 to the 4 to the 5, then to the 2. And then if you know structure, okay, verse is 1 4 5 1. And suddenly you can make these little boxes for yourself, and then it becomes very easy to memorize songs. Whereas before I knew this stuff, you just have to remember where to press on the bass. But if you wouldn't play bass, suddenly you move over to the keyboard, you're completely lost because it's a different instrument, because you only know it on your instrument. But if you have the knowledge of what chord, what harmony, you can walk to any instrument. You can do it in the computer, type it in more or less. It's great. And some people might say it takes originality out, but I don't really believe. I think it just teaches you the language. From cello to bass there was a little break, but 4 strings, but still it's similar movements. And then I started playing in rock and metal bands and started practicing more, and I got into upright bass and went to jazz school in Zurich. And then when I moved to America, that's when I got more into synth. And I came as a bass player, and I formed a band, and I started writing more and recording, because we had no money, so you start recording yourself. You're recording your own band. And through that, I started programming more and more and more, and I got my first great synth, the Juno 60. This producer through a friend of mine. She was visiting from Sweden, and she says, "Oh, I'm going to breakfast with a friend of mine and her boyfriend. Brian Sparber was his name. He's a music producer. Maybe you want to come? I don't really want to go alone." And I really didn't want to go. Some music producer guy, it's so lame. What do I want to? I don't even want to meet him. Anyway, I did go to the breakfast, and we totally got along, really, really good. Then maybe 2 weeks later, he called and said if I would want to work on an album with him. Upstate New York, in this old church, very famous studio called Dreamland. But I told him, I did live sound, then I bullshitted my way in. I know how to run Pro Tools, of course, really well, because I do it for myself, for my own music. I know synthesizers really well. I really learned it myself. I don't have a proper education as an engineer. And he said, I don't care. It's just come along, I'll teach you everything. And that's how it went. I went up there with him, and we worked together for 3 years on many albums. by a woman who ran this recording studio, Electric Lady Studios in New York. He was asked if he would be interested in helping Dave Gahan of Depeche Mode record demos for the next Depeche album. He asked, would you want to do it? I was like, yeah, of course, I'll do it. And that was it. Like a week later, I went down there, I met with Dave, and he just got a studio in this legendary place called Chungking Recording Studios. It was like a big rap studio, Beastie Boys and I think Run DMC, a lot of people recorded there, Bowie. And from then on, became friendly, you know, we got along and we worked together, making demos. And then I started making my own music more and more and more. I started playing concerts. They went on tour playing The Angel, Depeche. We didn't talk so much, I was busy with other stuff, worked on other records with people. And then he did a solo album, Dave, Hourglass. But I wasn't involved. And he got the touring drummer of Depeche, Christian Eigner, and this amazing producer guy, Andrew Philpott, to come to New York and do the solo album with him. They had one gig in New York, in this place in the East Village. After the gig, these two guys come up to me. Oh, it was great, we loved it, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm Christian, hey, I'm Andrew, hey. It's like, so what are you guys doing here? And yeah, we're working with Dave Gahan on his solo thing. I was like, holy shit. So suddenly, we bumped into each other, the right people. And then they got me actually in the studio anyway to help with some editing and fixing some stuff up and working on vocals with Dave. And that was the beginning when we worked closer, not just demos, like actual proper stuff. You want something that you're very comfortable with, so you don't have to think much when you work. That's the most important. Then you don't even realize you're recording or editing. I want to hear it this way, I want to hear it that way, this is a little late, this is a little rushed. And you work fast, and that's when you can really focus on the music. That's the best. For creative work, I'm 100% on Ableton Live. Together with Machine, it's its own little sequencer engine within Ableton. So I do all the drum programming and a lot of the synth-based programming I do in Machine. It's called Machine. All the other creative stuff is in Ableton. And then Pro Tools I only use if I bounce it down, I record it back in track by track. So Ableton was a massive reason for me to switch. It was just so much more versatile for what I wanted to do. I had to do it. Actual writing happens mostly separately, and then when we come, we just adjust. He's a very gut-driven writer. Like, he comes up with stuff, and the way he describes it's like in everyday life he comes up with things. And for me, I'm very analytical and more studio-driven. I sit with machines and stumble over things. Sometimes I come up with something outside, but pretty rare. And I was working a lot on vocals with him, so I knew his range quite well. And I was always working on my own songs, of course, on the side, which was, you know, my main passion. There's one song where I felt it was perfect for Dave. The range of, you know, where he would fit vocally. So I asked if he would maybe perhaps consider singing on the song, because I had other singers sing on the stuff. And he said, yeah, he would. And it would be fun. So I sent him the song, and he came up with a fantastic melody and beautiful words. And we recorded it, and it came out really good. So the manager gave me a call and said, good news and bad news. Bad news is you can't use the song. The good news is, can you make more? So that's how we started actually creatively writing together. And that was for a Delta machine. We stuck to that way of working. I make up the song arrangement and the programming, the beat, the vibe. And when I have a rough sketch, not too detailed, I try to keep it more raw and more unfinished, so he can sing over it, come up with ideas, and then we come here into the studio and meet and record like a scratch vocal. And often that's when I make changes to the music to fit better to his vocal. You know, sometimes he says, oh, this chord change is a little bit too brainy, too clever, or try something more angular or whatever we feel, then we actually work creatively together in the room. But we both come in prepared. I believe that you have a certain amount, it's a limited amount per day. At least I think it's per day. You get hired in the studio as a programmer or as a writer or composer, and you spend the day and you create stuff, you make stuff. For me, I cannot go home and work on my own stuff, like really creatively. I can do maintenance things or edit drums or edit vocals or something, but actual creative decisions or creative processes, I think I'm empty after a day of working for money with someone else or not for money. So I got a job at Sony as a ringtone composer. And part of the job was to come up with ringtones, but it turned out that was really a small part of the job because there were so many new releases that needed ringtones to be done from. And I thought, like, this is so crazy. I sit 8 hours a day and I do not really creative work. I just transcribe somebody else's music and make it into MIDI notes to be played on a phone. But somehow that didn't empty my brain. My creative level stayed full. And at 6 p.m. I came out, I jumped on my bicycle, went to the studio, and I was full of creativity. And I actually got so much more music created in those years at Sony than I did when I was full-time working in music. So I always, when somebody says, oh, but I have a job, I can't really do my music, I always say, you know, the day has 24 hours. If you do 8 hours of your job, hopefully, some jobs are longer, I guess, especially in America. But 8 hours, you still have 8 hours to do whatever you want. And then you have 8 hours of sleep. So even for me, if I think, oh, if it all ends, you know, and I have to go back to a normal job, it's not the end of the world or the end of music. I can still go back and make music. And sometimes life takes you, even though you don't know, it takes you on little detours and you might hate it, but you learn something from it. So yeah, from that one breakfast that I didn't really want to go to, it went to everything. This is like the American dream, key moments in life when you think, nah, I don't want to, I kind of should, maybe I should, let's go. And everything goes from there. And that's the beautiful thing, of course, in America, where I'm from, this can't happen, does not happen.